Have you ever noticed that when you embark on a genuine transformation, the people around you begin to feel disconcerted? They don't articulate their unease openly. Of course, they will disguise it with humor, with cautionary advice veiled as concern, or with that awkward reticence when you discuss something profound, but deep down what's really happening is straightforward. Your mental evolution imperils their comfort zone, and no one relishes being forced to confront their own complacency. Perhaps you are navigating precisely this right now. You commence to think divergently, act distinctively, maybe even interrogate things you once accepted without scrutiny, and suddenly you began to feel isolated, misunderstood, judged. What no one disclosed to you, and what Nietzsche comprehended better than anyone else, is that this is the price of cultivating a robust mind, not just any kind of fortitude, but a fortitude so intense, so authentic that it makes others uncomfortable, it unsettles them, it exposes, without articulating a word, the vulnerability of those who still exist on autopilot. But why does this occur? Because a truly formidable mind is a threat to collective mediocrity, and Nietzsche was unequivocal about this. When you resolve to think for yourself, establish your own values, and relinquish the comfortable delusion of prefabricated truths, you become formidable, formidable to the system, formidable to others, and, most importantly, formidable to your former self. This video is a summons, a challenge. It's not crafted for those who are complacent, nor for those who crave facile answers. It's fashioned for you who is exhausted from being a captive to your own insecurities, who feels on the cusp of an internal upheaval, and who is prepared to construct something that no one can annihilate, a mind that no one can manipulate, a mind that terrifies because it does not yield. So if you feel prepared for this path, a solitary, tough, but utterly transformative path, stay, because what Nietzsche has to impart to you will confront you, but it can also emancipate you, and after this you will never perceive the same way again. Nietzsche was not merely a philosopher, he was a surgeon of the human psyche, someone who had the courage to gaze into the abyss of existence and not only confront it but immerse himself in it. And it is precisely in that abyss, in that inner turmoil that many evade, that he discovered the fount of genuine strength. Because for Nietzsche it is not in serenity, stability, or order that a human being transforms, it is in anguish, it is in the downfall, it is in chaos. He penned, "You need to have a chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star." This is not a poetic metaphor, it is a psychological diagnosis. It implies that if you aspire to forge an unshakable mind, you need to relinquish the juvenile notion that it will occur through comfort, cheap motivation, or positive affirmations. No, authentic strength is born when you face suffering without fleeing, when you cease asking for life to be more tolerable and commence wishing to be stronger. Recall the instances you grew the most. Was it when everything was tranquil, or was it when you were shattered, lost, directionless, having to reconstruct yourself with your own hands? Nietzsche believed that suffering was not a mishap of existence, but rather its primary driving force. He did not romanticize pain, he faced it as a tool, and if you can transform your relationship with pain, with failure, with loneliness, you begin to shape something rare, an indomitable spirit. And it is precisely there that the world begins to be unsettled by you, because while most flee from chaos, you will learn to navigate within it. While others supplicate for normality, you will create greatness. But this transformation necessitates a brutal rupture with everything you were taught about fortitude. Being strong is not about smiling perpetually, it is not about having feigned emotional control. Being strong is enduring the unbearable and emerging on the other side even more formidable. But Nietzsche knew that chaos by itself is not sufficient. You can be devastated by it if you do not possess an inner center and anchor, and that is why in the next segment we will discuss the most decisive moment of Nietzschean philosophy, when he annihilates God and places upon you the full weight of existential responsibility. Because when there is no longer a sky to gaze up to, it is within you that the universe needs to be born. If this content is resonating with you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your patronage. When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he was not exulting, he was issuing a warning that many still do not comprehend today. What he annihilated was not a divine entity per se, he annihilated the delusion that there exists a higher authority taking care of everything, the delusion that there is a plan, a pre-established meaning, a purpose dictated by someone from the outside. The demise of God is the termination of any excuse, and that is disconcerting because until then it was facile to outsource the responsibility for your life. It was comforting to believe that everything has a rationale, that suffering is part of a divine plan, that there is a greater good that will justify everything in the end. Nietzsche violently tears this veil away. He gazes at you directly and says you are alone. There is no prefabricated meaning. Now you are the creator, and this is where the true construction of a formidable mind commences, because most individuals collapse when they realize they are alone in the face of chaos, without a manual, without guarantees, with no one to blame but those who possess the courage to confront this without crumbling. They begin to forge an unshakable consciousness. With the demise of God, Nietzsche propels you into the abyss of radical freedom. You should not adhere to commandments, you must establish values. You should not obey, you must surpass yourself. It is the birth of brutal autonomy. And along with it comes the weight. Everything now depends on you. There is no more absolution, there is no more salvation. Either you construct yourself or you sink. But here lies the secret. This freedom that frightens you is also the greatest source of potency you can possess. When you comprehend that no one will come to rescue you, something within you awakens, a fire that compels you to rise even while bleeding, that forces you to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, to act, not because someone dictated it is right, but because you decided it is. It is in this rupture with existential crutches that Nietzsche prepares the ground for something even more grandiose, the emergence of a new way of being, a type of human being who does not exist according to the rules of the herd, who does not require approval or permission, a being who creates their own morality, who surpasses their own limits and exists as a creator, a being that frightens the feeble because it forces them to behold themselves as they truly are. This being has a name. Nietzsche termed it the Übermensch, the Overman, and it is about him that we will discuss now, because if you aspire to construct a mind so robust that no one can fracture it, you need to comprehend how to become this figure who exists above conventions, guided solely by their own will to power. Let's delve into this. Nietzsche did not subscribe to the gradual and passive evolution of humanity. He subscribed to rupture, to radical transformation, to creative destruction, and that is why he conceived the idea of the Übermensch, the Overman. It is not about a superhero, it is not someone with mystical powers. The Übermensch is a being who has overcome everything that constrains the ordinary individual: guilt, obedience, herd morality, the need for acceptance. The Übermensch does not strive to be accepted, he does not solicit permission to exist, he establishes his own internal laws and lives by them, even if that places him in opposition to the entire world. And that is precisely why his mind becomes unbreakable, because it is not constructed on the expectations of others. It does not require external validation to authenticate itself. It is self-sufficient. It feeds on its own will to power, the profound impulse to shape reality in its own image. This is the central tenet. The Übermensch does not adapt to the world, he imposes meaning on the world. He does not seek comfort, he seeks greatness. He does not inquire, is this permissible? He inquires, is this worthy of me? And this shift in perspective alters everything, because when you commence to perceive yourself as a creator, not as a servant, the manner in which you think, act, and feel transforms completely. But here lies the conundrum: becoming this kind of being necessitates sacrifice. You will have to annihilate parts of yourself that still supplicate for approval. You will have to face the anguish of not belonging. You will have to bear the weight of constructing your identity from scratch, without guarantees, without pats on the back, without applause from the audience. And most individuals cannot endure it. They relinquish before they commence. They retreat to the safety of prefabricated beliefs, dogmas, and rules that someone else wrote for them. The path to the Übermensch is solitary, and Nietzsche knew this. He himself existed on the margins, misunderstood, termed mad, isolated from the world he was endeavoring to liberate. But it was in that isolation that he discovered his freedom, and this is what you need to comprehend. The more robust your mind becomes, the further you drift from the masses, the higher you ascend, the more you disturb. The construction of the Übermensch is the most brutal and transformative process anyone can undergo, because it necessitates you to annihilate everything that is not yours, everything that has been imposed on you by a diseased culture, by a society that rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. And only after annihilating do you commence to construct. But this construction does not occur amidst the crowd, it occurs in silence, in withdrawal, in the profound solitude that separates the robust from the feeble, and that is precisely why in the next segment we will immerse ourselves in the most neglected and most potent aspect of this journey, the solitude of the strong, because the veracity is that to become unshakable you will have to learn to navigate alone, and few are prepared for that. Are you? If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll discover real value in my ebook Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to comprehend yourself more profoundly. Link is in the pinned comment. If there's something that no one discloses to you about the path of mental fortitude, it's this: the more formidable you become, the more solitary you feel, and it's not because you isolate yourself by choice, it's because the world commences to not know what to do with you. Nietzsche spoke unequivocally about this: the free spirit, the one who breaks away from common morality, who does not accept facile truths, who thinks for themselves, inevitably distances themselves from the herd, and that distancing is painful, but that pain is necessary because genuine growth necessitates space, and you cannot grow while being tethered to the expectations of others. Most individuals exist within an invisible herd where every thought is policed, every action is measured by others' reactions. You've become accustomed to navigating in a group, thinking like the group, feeling secure because there are individuals around you. But what Nietzsche proposes is the antithesis. He tears you away from that comfort and casts you into the desert. In that desert there are no applause, no accolades, no guide. There's only you, your doubts, your traumas, your fears, your desire to relinquish, and that's where the genuine test commences. Because what will most individuals do? They will retreat, they will conceal again behind their masks, they will feign that they don't feel, that they don't think, that they don't see. But you, if you genuinely aspire to become someone that no one can fracture, will have to persevere. You will have to endure the silence that reveals who you truly are. Nietzsche said, the individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you strive, you will often feel solitary and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for possessing yourself. That is the essence, the possession of oneself, the rarest and most potent achievement anyone can attain. Because when you truly possess yourself, no one else can control you, no one else dictates your worth, and no one else can bring you down. But this possession comes with the weight of solitude. You will lose individuals, you will be misunderstood, you will hear that you are arrogant, bizarre, distant. They will endeavor to pull you back into the mold. They will call you insane, cold, insensitive. But that is the price of not being domesticated. It is the price of not requiring applause. It is the price of not existing as a mirror of others' needs. And here lies the unvarnished truth: if you cannot endure solitude, you are not prepared for freedom, because all genuine freedom comes with abandonment of emotional crutches, of comfortable delusions, of utilitarian friendships. That's why Nietzsche regarded solitude as a privilege, a battlefield where the true self finally has space to emerge. But this free mind, this elevated spirit, does not merely navigate alone, it commences to perceive what others do not perceive, and with that comes the second inevitable effect, the confrontation with mediocrity. Because when you commence to become robust, the collective mediocrity senses it, and it reacts, and that is precisely what we will discuss next, the peril of collective mediocrity. Because the world does not pursue those who are identical, it pursues those who dare to stand out. Nietzsche did not fear tyrants, authoritarian leaders, or declared oppressors. What he feared and denounced with philosophical fury was the subtle and corrosive potency of collective mediocrity, that invisible system that keeps everyone leveled down, that punishes those who dare to think divergently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. Genuine tyranny, according to Nietzsche, does not emanate from above, it emanates from the sides, it emanates from the crowd that demands you remain diminutive so that they do not have to grow. And that is precisely what occurs when you commence to stand out, when your mind becomes sharper, your spirit firmer, your presence more uncomfortable. You commence to disturb, not because you're doing something erroneous, but because you are doing something rare. You are breaking the mold, and society abhors those who break molds. Collective mediocrity cannot tolerate individual brilliance, because that brilliance exposes the darkness of ordinary existence. Nietzsche termed this the slave morality, a morality constructed by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert values they transformed strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness, and with that they created a moral system that protects the weak and condemns the strong. But make no mistake, it is not out of compassion, it is out of resentment, because the weak do not desire to be rescued, they desire the strong to be annihilated. That is why when you commence to liberate yourself, they commence to attack you, sometimes directly, sometimes subtly with glances, silence, irony, but the message is unequivocal. Go back to the group. You are making us feel small, and you are unintentionally, just by being who you are. Nietzsche comprehended that most individuals exist in a state of paralyzing conformity, an existence shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience, and anyone who interrogates this state is perceived as a threat. But do not be deceived. Mediocrity does not attack with force, it attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the weight of repetition. It will endeavor to make you doubt yourself. It will make you believe you are erroneous for not conforming. It will utilize all social resources from shame to exclusion to make you lower your head, and it is at this juncture that many relinquish, because they cannot endure being the anomalous, the difficult, the arrogant. But Nietzsche would confer upon you another name, necessary, because while the world revolves around recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comfortable truths, it is the robust individual who brings the necessary discomfort for something novel to be born. Your divergence is the spark of transformation, but it is also the target of resistance. Being robust, thinking freely, existing autonomously, all of this is an act of war against collective mediocrity, and like any war, it necessitates preparation, it necessitates weapons, but not physical weapons, mental weapons, and that is precisely what we will discuss now in the final segment, because there exists a very high cost to developing a mind so robust that it frightens, but there also exists a reward that no one can take away. In the next segment you will comprehend the price and the potency of being music, unbreakable. You made it this far, that already sets you apart from the majority. Most individuals would have terminated this video at the first provocation, they would have fled at the first discomfort, they would have turned it off the moment they realized. This is not content meant to stroke the ego, it's a call to action, a call for those who are ready to relinquish the comfortable delusion and confront reality with their eyes wide open, because constructing a mind so robust that it becomes feared is not merely a choice, it's a renunciation. You will lose friendships that were based on superficiality, you will lose opportunities that necessitate submission, you will lose the ability to be content with little, but in exchange you gain something priceless: integrity, lucidity, presence. You will commence to observe that most individuals exist in a slumber, and that your lucidity is frightening, that your firmness makes others tremble, that your absence is louder than the presence of many. This fortitude does not emanate from outside, it is not taught in self-help manuals, nor is it earned with prefabricated phrases or vacant affirmations. It is dug deep within the psyche, in the silence of difficult nights and the choices that no one observes. It is the result of an internal war between who you were and who you are becoming, and this war has no termination, because the truly robust are not those who have won, they are those who continue to fight even when they could already cease. Nietzsche did not desire to create followers, he desired to provoke internal earthquakes. He desired you to cease crawling for approval, to cease supplicating for meaning, to cease seeking in prefabricated systems what can only be constructed with blood, sweat, and awareness. He desired you to become formidable, not in a violent sense, but in a rare sense, so rare that your mere existence forces others to gaze in the mirror and confront what they are evading. And now I want to invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments a truth you are tired of concealing, an opinion you are frightened to articulate, a thought that makes you feel isolated but that represents who you truly are. This is part of the journey, claiming your voice, showing your presence, and more than that, declaring that you will no longer yield. And if this video touched you, if something within you was awakened, don't cease here. The next video is just as important as this one, perhaps even more so. It continues this journey, and if you've made it this far, you know you're not watching merely out of curiosity. You are here because something within you has already commenced to change. So keep going, you are not alone, you are just ahead, and that, my dear, is frightening, but it is also liberating.